Holy shit, look who I found in the beautiful entertainment capital of North Dakota. The legend, comedian Greg Proops now joining me. Great to see you. Thank you so much for doing this, my friend.
It's my pleasure, Pete. And by the way, I'm in South Dakota. We were in North Dakota yesterday, so we've traveled downward. Now we're in Rapid City, just like in the movie North by Northwest with Cary Grant.
So much bragging. And
I know, right?
I mean, but do you love you're with the Whose Line Is It Anyway guys, right? Do you like performing? What's the audience like in those red states for you guys?
Pete, they're weepingly grateful. I mean, we played Bismarck for 2 nights and nobody goes to Bismarck and nobody comes to Rapid City. So they're pretty happy. And they laugh at the few. I mean, this is an improv group, so we don't exactly do biting satire. We get a few, knocks in on the government here and there, and they tend to laugh at them. If they don't boo or anything because it's not a stand-up crowd. They just kind of they do that white people thing where they're kind of sad that happened, and then they move on.
It's really perfectly performed. Yes, that exact feeling. White audiences versus black, like I'll just say white and black audiences. I won't name all the other races between because they're the most disparate. Like talking about that is nothing better than killing for a black audience. Nothing. In my mind, in terms of demographically, if you're a white comedian, especially, is also nothing worse than bombing. I've done both for a black audience. When I was brought in to open, I was brought in at the last second to open for Arnez J at the Improv about 20 years ago in Florida, and it was the worst. All black, 300 black people and me, and it was just, like they pulled me off early. It was the worst feeling I ever had. So that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, years ago, I opened for AJ Jamal in Dallas, 100 years ago. And even worse than that, the crowd sat politely. And then at the end, I got like I'd just sunk a putt at the end of every show, And I was like, God damn it. I mean, they didn't boo and they didn't, heckle. Nice. They just absolutely sat quietly and like went, okay, got it. Yeah, you got a lot to say. But you do have a lot to say. I do have a lot to say, Pete.
And you never hold back, Greg, on social media, on your podcast, wherever you've gone. You've always been one of the most outspoken. I'll call you a thought leader. Do you mind?
If you wish. I prefer, gigantic stud bucket, but thought leader's fine with me.
I mean, you're an influencer. You're a thought leader. You are someone who a lot of comedians, most comedians respect. I know you've talked here and other places about the personal conflicts that you've had with different comedians. We all have. But you stand up for what you believe in, if your integrity is impugned and so on and so forth. It's a crazy business. But I mean, I think most comedians like and respect what you do and what you have done. And I say that not only to flatter you, but to get in the conversation about Jimmy Kimmel. I think most comedians feel that way about him. What is your relationship with Jimmy Kimmel?
Well, first of all, thank you for saying that, Pete. I appreciate that. My wife always says to me, you can't buy integrity. And I may not have lots of other things, but I certainly have tried to stay true to myself. Yes, I think Jimmy has developed over the years in his position at ABC into someone who's been more and more responsible and really responsive to the audience and what's really going on in the world, as opposed to just making it a fluffy late night affair. He's talked about healthcare. He's talked about his own family. And the last few years, he's really talked about issues a lot. And that I appreciate. I like to see some evolution in a comic. I really hate that whole, you should just stick to the jokes. You're not allowed to have an opinion. Nina Simone, the great artist and rabble-rouser and jazz artist, said, an artist has to represent their times. And I think George Carlin and Bill Hicks and Richard Pryor are looking down at us at all times, and Lenny Bruce, and demanding that we say something about what's going on. And I'll go one step further. Jimmy came from doing like the Man Show and all that sort of yucky dude stuff and has, I think, changed into someone who's a much more responsible spokesperson. Yeah. And I think that's beautiful. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think wokeness is beautiful. I think, as you're saying, evolution of your thinking, especially for a white, a white man who is less forced to have to change any of our thinking. So I think that's what you're saying about Jimmy Kimmel. Would you say the same for Johnny Carson? This morning, our dear leaders, head of FCC, and one of the architects of Project 2025, his name is Brandon Carr. He brought up Johnny Carson, and there's this clip going around this morning about Johnny Carson, an interview 7,000 years ago, saying it's not my job to comment on serious things and be serious and all of that. I think that's the dumbest comparison ever, because life then, America then, broadcasting then, comedy then is not today. What are your thoughts?
I couldn't agree with you more, Pete. First of all, it speaks to the complete and utter old-fashioned morass they live in. For them, it's always 100 years ago. Bringing up Johnny Carson when Johnny Carson hasn't been relevant to the comedy conversation in 1,000 years. Secondly, there were no black talk show hosts on TV then. Maybe Della Reese, you know what I mean? And even Della Reese got knocked off the air because she was black. So yeah, it's not pertinent at all. They can't find anyone to do funny because, and I'll say this just blanketly, being a right-wing comic is not funny. Funny comedy is about the underdog. Comedy is about poking at power, and you have no responsibility to suck up to the powers that be. I would think their analogy is always going to be weak. And Brendan Carr knows that he's on the flimsiest ground in the history of mankind, because what he's doing is literally unconstitutional. I think you'll find in that First Amendment there that the freedom to gather, freedom of assembly, and freedom of speech is guaranteed by the Constitution. And freedom of speech doesn't mean no repercussions. There are repercussions. If Jimmy had really legitimately said something horrible, which he did not, he actually stated a fact.
No, this is not about what Jimmy, it's not about what Jimmy said the other night. No, it's about Trump hates Jimmy Kimmel, and the MAGA wants to control all media. They want to have it state run. I mean,
Jimmy made fun of him at the Oscars, and that's as simple as it gets, man.
And
this guy's an id monster, Yeah. I mean, he hates Obama because Obama made fun of him. He hates Jimmy Kimmel because Jimmy Kimmel made fun of him. He hates black people because he's a racist, bigoted racist.
Let me dare to push back on one thing on you, which I would never. I'm terrified to do it. You said right-wing comedy is not funny. I agree, not to us. But I don't like when people say something's not funny if that comedian fills up an arena of people who are laughing, or people go and watch them. People watch Greg Gutfeld. People watch all kinds of racist, sexist comedians. They think it's funny.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I was told a long time ago when I first started, you're right and the audience is wrong. So in that sense, yes, because, people who sell tickets and whatnot, let me put it this way. I don't have to think it's funny, and that's not what I subscribe to.
Got it.
And I would never, and I'll be honest, debase myself by espousing one of the reasons I quit having men open for me and feature for me on the road was I got really tired of hearing like Iranian jokes and women are bitches and shit, because I felt like men were really falling behind for a while in the clubs. And so I started having only women feature and open for me.
Right.
I know I'm not the only comic that's done that, but I got tired of having 3 guys on and having 2 guys talk about pornography for 25 minutes.
It's also breaking the chain of the cycle of the normal-ish idea that we create opportunities for people who are like us, because we mostly know people like us. So if you work at a company, a corporation, a business, I hired this guy, Greg, because he's my friend's son. But my friend's a white guy. He's a guy. But that's why I'm doing it. These are the people I know. It's important for white guys like us to create opportunities and open doors for women, for people of color, for people. And I want to open for you, but since you're not allowing men to open for you, I may transition. I will transition for the only fact that I would like to open for you. Would that be amenable?
Yeah. If it would, but I don't do very many stand-up dates anymore. I'm mostly doing improv. So you're going to have to improvise transitioning.
It is just you and I, a night with Greg Proops, and I will come in, and it'll just be, we don't even need me here. Let's be honest. But getting back to Kimmel and comedy, this is where we're at, Greg. This is the paradigm we're in. The late night shows are probably going to go away anyway because of the internet and everything else. and everybody's funny now and so on. But this is the government doing it. What should be the reaction from comedians right now?
Vehement disapproval and an immediate pushback and blowback. By the way, ABC, as far as I can tell from having read the news even this morning, it's a suspension, they're calling it, that he's suspended. In other words, the network, who we know through Rolling Stone, at first supported him and then pulled their support, is still reviewing the situation. And this is the kind of thing where you can push back and make the decision change.
You think there's anything that could change the decision with the biggest pushback ever? Don't you think Kimmel's done?
There's only two things these jokers understand: money and popularity. And so if you're cutting them off with their money, that's one thing. If you're cutting them off with their popularity, that's another. They know they're underwater with people right now. They know that this is the last gasp of the dinosaur as it tries to hold on to the earth while the small furry mammals are crawling out of the undergrowth to take over from their giant dinosaur fascist regime. He had his little dinner last night in England, and there was Tim Cook was there, the CEO of like 50 different companies were there at that dinner in London with him.
I thought it was weird that Jeffrey
had a big tech dinner last week in Washington with all of them, and they all got there and kissed his ass. And this is what we're up against, you know. I mean, the consolidation of media to the point where there's not going to be any opposing viewpoints, and a lot of oligarchs and rich people running everything. But by the way, it was always like this. So not to depress everybody into complete submission, things were never really balanced, fair, or a level playing field. So it was always up to us. I think part of it now, Pete, and I think you'd probably agree with me, is that, like I used to say in his first term, things got so bad that white people got freaked out. Right. And that's where we're at now. When they start coming after Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert, finally white people get it through their head that they're taking people off the street with masked, unmarked police force, that they're taking away our healthcare, that they're violating us in 1,000 ways. And when white people put their physical bodies on the line to protect everyone else in this country, that's when things will change. And believe me, they're frightened of it. Otherwise, they wouldn't be gerrymandering furiously in Texas and Missouri and all those places. They know they don't have the votes. They know they don't have the popularity. And I'll say one last thing. They know that when he's gone, the head is off the snake, because no one is going to follow J.D. Vance as a charismatic leader there. I've said it.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. And everything else that you just said. When in your career, Greg, have you had to worry about what you said on stage or on any other platform?
I've played different clubs around the country, including in New York, where I've said things during different presidents, W and whatnot, that got me in trouble with the audience, that got me in trouble with the club. I've had there was incidents in Denver where I was talking about guns on stage, and I got a lot of pushback from the club about how I was too outrageous and insulted their audience because I suggested that perhaps there were enough guns. And that they had decided that there wasn't exactly a perfect, I think my joke was,
think that.
We think that there's enough violence from guns, but there's still people who believe that there's a kind of an unlimited amount of violence from guns that we should have, and that I rubbed them the wrong way. I've also been kept off of different TV shows over the years because I wanted to say what I wanted to say, or was told by the comedy bookers that they knew what the audience wanted, even though in those days I was in clubs every single week of the year, and I felt I had a pretty good grasp of what the public wanted. But you can't tell TV people what to do. And also, to your point, what you were saying about late night's going to go. The other reason late night's going to go is you may have noticed the destruction of television chunk by chunk by chunk. And one of the things that they don't want to pay for is high salaries and the high cost of keeping these late night things on. Yeah. Jimmy probably has a couple hundred people, if you want to count all the writers, crew.
Well, Colbert, I know, has about 200, and I think Kimmel has just a few less, maybe. But they're
right. So that's what we're talking about. And LA's really taken it hard this year. We had a terrible year. We had the strike before the fire. 45,000 people moved out of LA. It cost the state $4.5 billion. No one's even talking about that in LA. Show business is being decimated. And part of it is cost cutting from the people who run these companies. They really don't want to carry the giant salaries and the giant burden of being the livelihood for 200 people, which it is. And that's what we're talking about, the human cost, even more than, Jimmy and Stephen personally will probably be fine as far as financially, but the point of this isn't that at all. The point of it is free speech, and then the human cost of firing everybody from these shows, which really does have an effect on the world.
There is something, it's easy to talk about these shows were not long for this world. That genre was not long for this world, or specifically, I would argue, 11:30 is not long for this world, because by the time that show rolls out, I think they started even releasing clips sooner. You and every other funny person has made the funniest joke already about the thing that happened today. And so we were kind of satisfied in a way with getting the comedy. But now I'll argue against that, which is there's a certain comfort for people of a certain age, certainly me. I would watch those monologues almost every morning, play clips from my show. I still feel that those monologues and those shows, even in our fragmented media atmosphere, are a warm blanket to a certain extent at the end of the day. Not that I'm watching them live or anything, but that a lot of people are watching. There's a live audience laughing. Jimmy making his jokes, Stephen making his jokes, John Oliver, you making yours, and hearing people laugh makes me feel like I'm not alone, as it seems like the world is spinning out of control and into fascism. And how could this possibly be happening in our lifetime? And I can't believe this is happening, yet neither can you, Greg. And that mattered to me. That matters to me. And it reminds me I'm not alone in what I think my sense of morality and integrity is. Do you think that that matters, or do we replace that?
Oh, I think it'll evolve, but I also think it does matter. There has to be a community. And part of what the talk shows do is provide onto the internet the next day all the clips and talking points that everybody talks about. I mean, I was buddies with Craig Ferguson, and he was a really beautiful person in so much as he actually sought out comics and put them on his show for the whole time that he ran his show, which was a really great thing, that he actually took obscure comics and comics from clubs and put them on TV. And I think there has to be a town hall for us all. And now it's the web. And that's where we have to be really careful to not fragment into a zillion billion pieces, like you say. My only objection, of course, was that it was always a bunch of guys.
Yeah. Well,
They gave Samantha Bee a show for 2 years, and then that apparently was too much for everybody.
You think women are funny?
I'm perfectly willing to listen to anyone that's interesting. I'm not particularly interested if their name's Jimmy, which at one point there were 5 Jimmys on TV.
Yeah, that's right.
I was like, okay, Greg, with the Jimmy.
You think women are funny, Greg? Your wife apparently wrote the joke that I used on CNN last night. I said on CNN, I quoted your post on CNN. It was like something like, there's only going to be one channel left, and it's just going to be the Oral Roberts show and Hee Haw. I thought that was so funny, and I said, Greg Proops just posted this. I didn't take it. I gave credit to you on TV, but then you emailed me this morning. Goes, my wife actually wrote that. So if she's watching,
my wife wrote it yesterday. We were talking yesterday, and she wrote me. Yeah, Jennifer, my wife Jennifer, who I do the Smartest Man in the World podcast with. My wife's hysterically funny and has always helped me with my writing and everything. And, I think women are funny. Years ago, I was at Aspen, and Jerry Lewis got up and said women weren't funny. And in the crowd was Carolyn Ray, Elaine May, Catherine O'Hare, Andrea Martin. You know what I mean? Like, it was a cavalcade of women in the audience. And he said it just to get press. So when people say that stuff, I always think it's just complete misogyny and jazz like that.
Regardless, the point is made, and we're not just necessarily being virtuous or virtual signaling. Like, having women and people of color and gay people and trans people like doing comedy. It's this renaissance of comedy, at least with stand up and with sketch, with everything that everybody has access to, has been wonderful to see. So much, because you get these wildly different points of view than you would if you were a beautiful, perfectly structured white man like Greg and I traveling through life in this vessel. You get a different perspective than someone with so much symmetry and, in your case, hair.
No question. Although my perfection is, I think, intimidating to a lot of people.
It is.
It's very important
to email.
Very important to let women with their high peeping voices and minorities with their marginal opinions, take a bite of the small pie that I want to leave them. I think that's what's most important. I think the best thing about comedy in the last zillion years, I said it years ago at Montreal, and I had some comics get really mad at me for it. The difference was when I started is there wasn't as many black and women stars. And now there are. There's loads of black and women stars. And that's what equaling the playing field is. It's not a matter of, it's a matter of giving everyone a shot. And that's never really happened. And this, going back to your point about this government is clearly on a gigantic crusade to take us back to a day when white guys were centered, and that's it. And you can see it every day, what they do, the way they treat the women in their administration, the way they treat everyone who's not a white person, the erasure of all history that's not white history. It's revolting.
Why are we against that if we benefit from it? Why are you against it?
Well, morally, it's completely wrong, one. Intellectually, it's unsupportable. And you might as well say, why would you be against Nazis or fascism? Because it's a constriction of everything that we know, and it's a destruction of freedom. Not just the freedom of speech, but the freedom to live. Guns are white supremacy. Taking away healthcare is white supremacy. Ruining black colleges is white supremacy. Venerating Charlie Kirk and saying that anyone who says anything bad or even says anything about him is white supremacy. And there's no way around it. The Civil War was all about this. And I think I feel like we're a lot more the times are a lot more like the 19th century than they are about the 20th century. But add in, the internet and
that's how you make America great again. That's how you take back our country. Those were the slogans from the past two Republican revolutions, conservative revolutions under Obama, and now obviously Trump. Remember, Obama would take back our country from who? And now it's exactly what you just said. So next question: fascism, pros and cons. Proops.
Well. The fascism that pros are, fascists have tremendous designers like Hugo Boss.
Right.
And I can't remember the name of Mussolini's designer. They had kind of co-opted him. He was a beautiful artist, and they designed those fabulous uniforms and all that. But I mean, look at this lot. They dress like they're on the PTL bus. They're in the bus and truck company of a bloody Christian roadshow. They're such poor dressers. They have bad haircuts. They look terrible. They're incompetent. And that's the big difference. The idea that Nazism and fascism was ever a bunch of really astute people who did things efficiently is absolute fallacy. The idea that because you're a fascist, you're going to make things work is an absolute nonsense. I was perfectly happy having a beautiful black woman who was a prosecutor and was the most astute person I'd ever heard speak. I was perfectly happy with Hillary Clinton as an wildly intelligent, overprepared, astonishing international diplomat and mind who was clearly the equal of Bill Clinton intellectually and was able to advise him on 1,000 things. You knew they were partners. I was perfectly happy with them. I was perfectly happy with Joe Biden, who was also an expert on foreign policy. And now you see where we are. When you bring in people from the real world and Fox News, you get a Jeannie Pirro level of government. And I think one more thing. I think that RFK, Mr. Patel, and Ms. Bondi are not long for this administration. I think that things are getting really rugged for all of them. I think that their terrible decisions and their awful, awful ethos is catching up with them, and that eventually the truth bites you in the ass.
Yes, but unfortunately, and I think you're right about that, unfortunately, RFK will be replaced by measles itself. Cash Patel will be replaced by a bullet.
It'll just be a giant spirochete.
Pam Bondi will be replaced by a white sheet. I feel like it gets worse. Whoever comes next, it's more.
Well, that's the problem. We started so low. I mean, his first administration, they were terrible, but he did try to at least have, the Rex Tillerson level of,
Well, he didn't try. He did. You're giving him too much credit. He didn't try. He wanted cartoon villains, and the deep state pushed back. His advisors pushed back. Said maybe you shouldn't have Dog the Bounty Hunter run the FBI. Maybe get someone who's just a run of the mill fascist. Last question, I guess, Greg, is what does it mean when they come for comedians? This morning, my dad, who's 80, texted me and he's like, Lenny Bruce and George Carlin got us here, and they'd be rolling over in their grave and so on. I mean, what does it mean when they come forward, the comedians? Are we the first kind of profession, or is it academia, or is it journalism, or is it all of us at once, it would seem?
Well, obviously they've come for the poor and the migrant workers, Black people, Latin people, the Asian workers at the plant in Georgia, which was a complete and utter mistake. Comedians are always on the hit list because being a jester is a dangerous profession as far as if the king gets mad at you. Lyndon Johnson, of course, who basically got the Smothers Brothers fired, also said that satire was important. Lenny Bruce went to jail, and George Carlin and Richard Pryor went to jail. You guys, for you people who don't know anything about anything and don't know any history and only watch TikTok, they went to jail for profanity and for pissing off the government. And it can happen. It does happen. And they're not going to jail Jimmy Kimmel, but silencing them in the face of all this is exactly like taking off Katie Fang, Jim Acosta, the last reporters that were on CNN and MSNBC who actually spoke truth to power. And that's what this is about, speaking truth to power. And with comedy, it's telling jokes to power. And if there's one thing you've understood, it's that he hates being clowned on more than anything else, man. It really gets under his skin, which is, Pete, how you know it works and why we have some power.
Yeah. Do you think the right-wing comedians, if you will be in solidarity with the rest of comedy against this and anything else? Like,
I didn't see them come out yesterday, but we'll certainly see. If Tony Hinchcliffe and Theo Vaughn and Shane Gillis and all those guys, Rogan, are really serious about free speech. I remember when the shit hit the fan in 2001, all of a sudden Howard Stern was talking about, hey, I need to be able to say whatever I want. When before that it was like, hey, bomb Iraq into the ground. And then he kind of changed his tune on that. So I think that eventually it catches up with everybody. And your little fascist cruise that you go on where you're hoping to get to Harlan Crow's house to see the torture garden or whatever. You're going to have to put your dreams on the back burner there for a second. I would like to see them do it. I would like to see some solidarity.
I think Tucker Carlson and Matt Walsh, who are two of the most despicable people since Charlie Kirk. I mean, these guys came out against this last night and the days before, targeting people for their speech. It wouldn't be a heavy lift for Joe Rogan and Adam Carolla, who are good friends with Kimmel, to come out in support of Kimmel. Like, I'd like to see everybody in that Rogan sphere and every other right-wing comedian. This is an easy one for comedians. This is the easiest one.
Because first it's them, then it's you, baby, for real. They don't think that, but that's how it works. Someone wrote on, who was it? Sarah, somebody, oh, God damn it, I'm going to blow it. It was a woman who wrote today on the web. Then they came for the white male comedians. Is that how the poem goes?
Yes, that's hilarious.
Because like I said, white people are panicked now because they're really coming for everybody named Jimmy. And that's where we are. And by the way, for the people who are watching that are, that I think I only hammer on white people. One, yes, you're right. And two, it's imperative to kind of stand up and be counted at a certain point. If you were wondering what you would have done in the 1930s, my parents, I'm old. My parents were World War II parents and Depression parents. My dad was in World War II in Korea, and he was a Jew in World War II and Korea, and he remained a Jew. But the point is, if you wondered what you were going to behave like then when the Nazis took over, it's now. And it's not coming, it's now. It's right now, this very second. You're watching it in live time. The giant mistake the electorate made by not putting Kamala Harris in the White House has come back to bite us in the butt.
I hate to do it. I got to do a live read for PragerU. PragerU, folks. If you want Jesus, PragerU. I'm joking. I have no live reads, no sponsors.
At least it's not MeUndies or whatever.
My Pillow.
My Pillow.
Last night when I heard this news, I went to social media. I pretty quick went to your account to see what you'd say. I always care a lot about what you think, and I like to take what you think and then say it on other platforms. I will always give you credit. I'll be back on CNN today at 2. So if you have more jokes and comments like you did, I will steal them. I think you are a thought leader, as hacky and hokey as it is, an influencer. I think you're a great guy with a tremendous amount of integrity. Earlier, you said you can't buy it. A commenter said it's pretty hard to sell too. Keep doing your best to sell it. Greg, and I really appreciate you joining me. I'm always honored and real excited to have a legend like you join me.
Hey, thanks, Pete. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for letting me actually tell you that my wife wrote the joke, because I think that's important too, to give that credit. And so I really appreciate it, Pete.
I will say this: it's weird that she won't stop texting me now. I don't know how she got my number, but I'm happy.
And I didn't even give her your number.
I'm happy she found it. Gotta go. Gotta text your wife back. Sorry, Greg. All right.
Right.
Awesome. The great Greg Proops. I really appreciate you. Go support him. Go listen to his podcast. See him live. They're on tour right now. And I can't thank you enough, bud.
Big love, Pete. Appreciate it.
There it goes. Greg Proops. Now it's just me. Wait, stay there, Greg. I'll say goodbye. Patreon.com. I can't do this without you. Support independent media. And so I appreciate you joining me here. And hopefully I'll see you at tonight's hangout. If you're a paid subscriber, you get to hang out with us every night at 8. Maybe Greg will stop by, some of our other favorite guests to make us laugh and keep us sane. Thanks, guys, for watching. Talk to you later.